It's 2020, and the last thing we want is another politically charged video, right? But I'm sure you'll agree that this topic is important and we have to talk about it, so I'm going to explain as best I can why I believe that Star Trek is better than Star Wars. So I actually tried filming this video a couple of times before with bullet points and all that crap, but I've decided to just abandon that in favour of just talking as naturally as I can about it. So here I am, and maybe I can accurately convey what I need to convey. So, first of all, I love Star Wars. I think Star Wars is awesome. In fact, I saw it long before I ever saw Star Trek. So there's that, and that was in the 80s, right? And Star Wars was cool. Everybody thought it was cool. Everybody loved it. There was nothing geeky about it where I was from anyway. A couple of people might have thought it was geeky, but literally a couple of people maybe. All my friends at school loved it. It was cool to love it. And it was easy to see why. It was epic, massive, fun, colourful. The escapism was just incredible. Like, you immersed yourself in it. Now, at that time, there was only 3 films. So, there wasn't much to it. But we watched those films over and over and over again, right? So, that's what I've got to say about Star Wars. Love it. I still love it. I really enjoy The Mandalorian. The new films are so-so. I like some of them. I don't like some of them. The one thing I do like about Star Wars is that they've kept a visual consistency throughout everything from the 70s right up to now. And Rogue One, for example, is brilliant. I enjoy them as entertainment, okay? And I'll always will. But in a nutshell, that's all I've got to say about Star Wars, is entertainment. It's great escapism, great entertainment. Classic stories of good versus evil. That's basically it. Now, Star Trek. So Star Trek is entertainment as well, but it's not the same. Anybody who's watched 5 minutes of either franchise can probably tell you that. Now, I started watching Star Trek with Star Trek The Next Generation, and I wasn't interested in the show at all. I just wanted to see the visual effects because I was really into like spaceships at the time, and I thought it was cool to come home from school, do my paper round, and then race to the TV at 5 o'clock to watch spaceships on my TV. I thought that was cool when I was like an impressionable teenager. So I liked watching those. Now, that's not to say that the visual effects at the time were very good, but beggars can't be choosers, right? I mean, that's all that was on. But as I was watching it with the visual effects, I started watching the stories. I started getting involved with the characters. And as an impressionable teenager, somewhere along the line, looking back on it, I know what happened, but at the time, I just watched it. I didn't realise that, in a way, between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock at night when I was watching Star Trek The Next Generation, for me, that was school. It wasn't entertainment. Like, it was, but it was so much more than that. Star Trek was school to me. I go to school all day, but my real school started at 5 o'clock at night when I watched Star Trek, because I was seeing Not stories of just good versus evil battles, all as cool as they are. What was I seeing? I was seeing dilemmas. I was seeing adults trying to figure stuff out. I was seeing, in this case, Captain Picard always try to do the right thing. And a lot of surprising things happen in Star Trek that I never saw in real life. Where I grew up, nobody ever admitted when they were wrong. It was always somebody else's fault. It wasn't me, is the age-old cry of the Scottish teenager when I was, and adults as well, when I was living there. It wasn't me. That's it. It wasn't me. But I was suddenly watching this show with stories where even the leader of the ship would admit when they were wrong. He would, you know what, maybe we're wrong about that. What? Sorry, say that again. Did you just admit that you were wrong? Maybe we need to reevaluate our thinking on that. Maybe we're wrong about that. That type of thing was so, and is so, common in Star Trek. I'm not afraid to just do stuff like that. To me, that was new. Then, in my real world, every problem was solved by either fighting or running away. In Star Trek, they said, you know what, there's always a third way. There's always a third way or a fourth way to figure things out. The show would be marginally fun if the Enterprise blew everything up at the end of the episode to solve the problems. And it might have lasted 3 seasons and then everybody would get bored. Star Trek's been around for over 50 years. Why? Because you get more mileage out of trying to solve problems creatively and diplomatically and morally and ethically than you do just blowing stuff up. Now, I never really watched the original Star Trek as much as The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine, Voyager and all that. But I know that the common view is that Kirk was a bit more like that. He would just fight. But even then, he wasn't always like that. He would work stuff out. There was kind of an ethos to the way that our people in Star Trek worked. Our people being the Federation and Starfleet. Now, I've said this to my viewers many times, the closest thing I have to a religion is Star Trek, because it actually is an ideology. Now, I'm not sure, maybe the same can be said of Star Wars to a certain extent. You know, a lot of people, you know, see righteousness in the Jedi and always doing right and all, and that's fair. I just don't know if it's ever been fleshed out enough. And also, the fundamental premise of Star Wars is that it happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Star Trek is us, and it's going to be where we go in a couple of 100 years. Now, I lived in a scheme, which would be a ghetto, I guess, if you're from North America, in Scotland. Poor, everybody was poor. And so negative thoughts and not feeling optimistic about your own future was pretty common for everyone. Quick glance at Facebook to some of my old school pals, and I can see that many of them are unfortunately still a very negative mindset, poor mindset. I swear, I've travelled the world, I've emigrated 3 times, I've solved really some pretty reasonable challenges in my life. I don't think, I've not done everything right, but I've done a few things right. I've got myself lifted out of what could have been a pretty sad, poor existence where I'm from. And I swear to God, I credit that to Star Trek. As geeky as you might think it sounds. Captain Picard, the crew of the Enterprise, they were my role models. Now he was my father figure. My dad died when I was very young. So father figure, I naturally gravitated towards a father figure, and that was him. And I saw him every day, and I saw him solve problems and teach people lessons, good lessons. He would call people out when they were bad or wrong or unethical, but not just because he thought so. He would make everybody see the point of view, and then if it turned out that he was wrong, he would admit it. That's all completely refreshing to me, and it's what I needed at the time, but I carry it with me now. Every time I see a potential conflict, I like to think there has to be another way to solve this, and there usually is. And even though the world can be, especially now, can be pretty dark and negative, like we seem to all be sinking into that negative soup, nothing can change. We gravitate towards optimistic people, optimistic characters and countries and leaders. Because we need that. I needed it then, and we all need it now. So, Star Wars, entertainment, fun, beautiful. I was so jealous of Star Wars when I became a Star Trek fan because it just looked so much better than Star Trek. Star Trek is a fundamental belief system, an ideology that shows that humanity is more than just going to work, trying to make money, paying taxes, and going to vote for the next leader. It's so much more than that. And it isn't just an abstract idea. There are astronauts, scientists, even arguably some inventions that are a direct result of people who watched Star Trek, love Star Trek. I mean, you're talking about a show there which oh God, forgot his name. Professor Stephen Hawking himself went on the show as a character in the show, played himself. Because you see it, and if you really believe it, believe in its ideal, believe in its potential for humanity, it's exciting. It's the best form of escapism, not because it looks cool, but because it's got something to say, something positive to say, lessons to teach. It really was school. I feel like I learned way more watching this show throughout my life than I ever did in a school or college. So that's why, one of the reasons why I think Star Trek is better than Star Wars. Now, Star Trek has evolved in many ways with the time in which the shows were made. And that's obvious because you look at the new ones compared to the 90s ones compared to the 60s ones, and they visually look completely different. So the issues and the lessons that they try to teach can be different. And I feel like for every contentious topic that humans have, whether it's healthcare, death penalty, socialism, communism, capitalism, there's an episode for all of those. Like every single one of those episodes, every single one of those topics have an episode. It's almost like the writers were like, look, we've covered this, and this, but we haven't done healthcare's a real issue in North America, in the United States of America right now. Let's do an episode on that. And Star Trek Voyager did an amazing episode on that called Critical Care. And it wasn't just a preach, though. They did a legitimate, solid story based on that topic. And it's brilliant. You know, you sit back, I feel like it actually makes you think and consider different points of view and all that. And so yeah, Star Trek is school, it's not entertainment. And it's important to note that Star Trek is fundamentally a left-leaning ideology, for those of you who don't know that, which is surprising. A lot of people don't seem to know that. Star Trek is very left-leaning. It's not about money. In humanity's future, there is no money. We work to better ourselves, to find answers to our questions, to just, we have no disease, no war, no poverty. All that's been eradicated on Earth. I mean, who doesn't want that? Now, Star Trek doesn't tell us precisely how we're going to get to that point. We just have to work that out for ourselves. But it's definitely a goal. It's a goal that we want to get to. And who doesn't want that? So, you've got in another thing I want to explain about Star Trek compared to Star Wars is many, if not all, of the alien races in Star Trek are created as a mirror back on ourselves. You've got the Ferengi, who are like the comic relief capitalists, who with them you can bounce off questions and answers. They will always talk about things from a capitalist, money, profit-driven point of view. Then you've got the Romulans, who are the suspicious, conspiracy seeking, militant, paranoid part of ourselves. Make an alien race out of those traits. That's them. The Klingons are your warrior, always fighting, always willing to do battle, to jump in front of a bullet, noble, powerful. And so they're that aspect of humanity. They made an alien race out of that. And you've got like the Cardassians, who are another social, almost a communist military society. And they argue with our heroes and our characters based on that point of view. So it's really a brilliant way of creating an alien universe by taking human traits and creating alien races out of all those traits. That way, whenever a human, a future human, a Starfleet officer or whatever, encounters one of them, you can get that mirror reflection. The 24th century human might be like, I don't understand, why do you do that? Well, because I'm doing it for money. Well, why though? Why would you want to destroy all that just to get some money? And in doing so, it is teaching us the value of something we might be willing to sacrifice for money, whether it's nature, the environment, whatever. So it's amazing for that. I don't know if I'd say, I think it's preachy because I've bought into it. So I completely buy into the preachiness of it. But it's not singular. It's not saying that everybody else is wrong. Star Trek is full of examples. For example, in the future of Star Trek, we could presume that religion itself is going to be a bad thing, because humans have evolved way beyond that. But you can see examples. One example I can think of is the Bajorans, who are an alien race, where the Federation are helping them to rebuild after a military occupation by the Cardassians. Cardassians. They are extremely religious. And one of the characters on the show, the Captain Sisko's son, says they believe in these aliens as gods. It's dumb. And the captain is like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not dumb. He's like, just because you don't believe it doesn't make it wrong. So there's space in Star Trek for every colour, every religion, every atheist, everyone. And by Tim telling his son that these aliens are not wrong for believing in their faith, they're telling us that we don't have to judge anybody for that. We judge them on their actions, sure. But just because somebody believes in a certain faith, that's fine. Who are we? Who are we to say? We're not above them. We're not there to judge them. We're there to, I don't believe it, but if you believe it, that's fine. That's Star Trek. Open-mindedness and infinite diversity and infinite combinations. And I believe Gene Roddenberry, creator of Star Trek himself, did say that we have to embrace our diversity here on Earth. We have to do that. We have to get it all out of the way. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but we have to embrace all that diversity, because otherwise we're never going to get there. Because there is most certainly diversity. What we're going to do when we get there. We're not going to like the diversity when we go into space and meet other alien civilizations. So we have to get comfortable with our diversity here. And that is Star Trek to me. So I feel like I rambled, and I feel like I explained some of that quite well. Another thing I want to talk about, though, and this is part of the geeky side of it, and I think even a lot of Star Trek fans themselves haven't seen this. I'm a super geek, and I'd like to think I'm one of the few who may have seen it. So I think it's important to note that I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who said, "Talk softly, carry a big stick," as an approach to like foreign policy, diplomatic dealings. Don't go around beating your chest. You don't go around acting tough. But you do have the ability to defend yourself well if the time comes, or defend others. And Star Trek is all about that. The Starship Enterprise, all the Federation ships are not warships, with the exception of a couple. That's a different story. They are ships of exploration, diplomacy, peace, friendship. But they're well armed, because they're not stupid. They're not just fluffy and going around thinking, well, nobody's going to shoot at us. And one of the things that's sort of often levelled at Star Trek, and often in comparison to Star Wars, is that the Federation and Starfleet often get their ass kicked. And that's not true, but sometimes true. That they could be the underdog. But it's important to explore it all from the underdog point of view as well. However, there are times in Star Trek where, in the absence of the Starfleet officers themselves, other people regard Starfleet as a military force. But they're like an idealistic version of a military force. Like, they're there to do good. But obviously, if something bad's going to happen, they can intervene. I feel like, and I might be naive in saying this, I feel like that was the view of the United States in the 80s and the 90s. Big, and powerful, but they didn't beat their chest about it. You talk quietly but carry a big stick. That was the idea. And obviously things are very different now. And I say this because I feel like it's important to remember Star Trek, left-leaning ideology, very socialist in nature, strong militarily, projecting strength, but projecting diversity and being progressive and wanting to actively include those who are willing to join the club. That is fundamentally Star Trek, and that was fundamentally an American idea. I mean, Star Trek came from the minds of American people. And as much hate or negative views there are about the United States right now, I feel like it's important to remember those fundamental ideas came from the United States. So I'm a Scottish guy who lived in New Zealand. I live in Canada. Every day I try my best to live an ideology fundamentally based on an American idea. And I think it's important to say that and give credit where credit is due. So I hope some of that made sense. If it didn't, well, I hope you enjoyed the video anyway. And that is why I think Star Trek is better than Star Wars.